Okay, so remember that they are changing my voice. Now, this video is about why I won. Well, there's a reason why people who do the wrong thing are called low down, dirty, and no good. I could almost end the video right there, right? I mean, who wants to live a life that is low down, dirty, and no good? Whether it's a short life, or a long life, or a rich life, or a poor life, or you're good looking, you're not good looking. At the end of the day, when you're low down, dirty, no good, you're no good. For example, if someone gave you a Christmas present and it was the act of somebody who's low down, dirty, and no good, and the present is no good, as they say, no good. That's what it's called. Wouldn't you be like, man, that sucks? So point number one, all victories are in principle, right? You have to live a good life, a righteous life. Not good with your own sense of propriety, but universally good. If something is universally bad, only an idiot thinks it's universally good, whether billions of people agree with him or not. All victories are in principle. Point number two, a short righteous life is greater than a long wicked life, right? Righteousness is greater than wealth. I even have it on my bumper sticker, and I said, where's your counter argument? These people have been waging psychological warfare against me. They're trying to, destroy my sense of self, trying to change my perspective, trying to do things that make it obvious that they need to present a counter argument to that. If they have one, they don't have one. So they've admitted by their actions that they've lost in principle and they've lost philosophically. My philosophy, my ideology is superior to theirs. It reminds me of Kennedy when he said soldiers by day instead of guerrillas by night. What he was saying was you need to walk in the light, like it says in John 3, or you're on the wrong side of a war between good and evil. You're on the wrong side of an argument about a life that's worthwhile versus the people arguing that a life that isn't worthwhile magically is. You're on the wrong side of that disagreement. Point number three. In many ways, all rebels are better off dying sooner. They either slip into extreme denial, like a cowardly fool, or they dread death while full of guilt, or something in between. Their brains do not function correctly, and they are slaves to scum, especially the rich, even if they are rich. So they're slaves to scum, even if they're rich themselves, right? Think about how things work. If they try to pretend that their life isn't so bad, they slip into a state of denial and their brain functions less. Let me give you an example here. Someone who lives a life that goes in, they live to about 100 years old, and their brain functions, as much as it should, has lived twice as long, in a sense, as somebody who lives to 100 years old and their brain functions at 50% because they're in denial. You get my drift. Point number four. They are low-down dogs who are complicit with mass rape, mass murder, and mass child abuse. Now, they're complicit with so many things, I had to do it 3 at a time. You'll see what I mean. So point number four is they're complicit with mass rape, mass murder, and mass child abuse. Point number five, they're complicit with mass poisoning, mass theft, and mass drugging. Point number six, they are complicit with mass torture, mass starvation, and mass assault. Point number seven, they are complicit with mass deceit, mass idolatry, and creating depraved minds in the masses, and so on and so forth. Point number eight, 4,725 rich people and their immediate family members die every day in America alone, and more throughout the world. Point number 989,000 people die every day in the world outside the divine order. And they're complicit with their failure to come into the divine order because they're leading them away from what's right by their actions. Point number 10. 1 in 24 people in the world or so live in America. So 7,000 people or so, somewhere around there, die every day in America, give or take. So can you imagine that you work for the government and you think that you're doing a good job, or you're the president or you're the governor or whatever? You think the answer is to persecute me while 7,000 people die every day in America? That's stupid. 7,000 people die every day. Divide that by 24, that's how many die every hour. Okay, so point number 11. They feel the need to avoid pertinent facts and to pretend they're in charge. So think about this thing for a second. Just imagine the Earth, zoom out into outer space. Imagine what the sun sees. If the sun was a person and it's looking down at the Earth, what does it see? It sees a bunch of people playing a game, and lots of people out of fear and foolishness are following those people. But everybody who had ever had any sense doesn't follow the wicked. They never follow the wicked. And so they're only exerting control over people who don't have sense. Kind of like, a queen ant or something, a queen bee or something. Okay? They're only exerting power over people who don't have sense. Dumb and Dumber. Ren and Stimpy. You see what I'm saying? Sesame Street. The Simpsons. They don't have true power. Then they see the Son of God, the most righteous person to ever live, someone with true martial, moral, spiritual, romantic, etc. power. Prowess, excellence. And those inferior forms of life seek to try to pretend they're important. They want to pretend that they're in charge, and they're ignoring those pertinent facts. They have not proven martial power. They have not proven they have true power. They're just playing a game with people who aren't mature enough to transcend that game, following them. Point number 12. They do childish, petty bitch shit to try to avoid the topic, to try to avoid doing the right thing, what have you. And some of the stuff they do is very mature, very mature. They kept me from wearing a coat during the winter, right? They kept me from having air conditioning in my house. They made it so that the air conditioner was going to mess with the air a certain way, so I couldn't use it. And they harassed me in very childish, pedo-like ways, child molester, homosexual harassment kind of ways. They do a lot of very mature things. I can't think of them off the top of my head, but a lot of them are very mature. They kept me from new shoes. They made it so that at one point I was wearing a sweater that was torn because it was cold, and they messed with my clothing a certain way, so I could only wear those sweaters. And so it was very sort of immature. So a lot of the things they did were very petty. And I have some scriptures I'm gonna bring up that overkill that I'm right to. Point number 13. The financial sabotage blew up in their face to the extreme. Point number 14. They permanently destroyed the feminine appeal of females. It's a long story why that is. If you're a younger person, you're a bit confused. But if you're my age or you're 30, you're probably not so confused about it, because 15 years ago, 20 years ago, females had a lot of appeal. I mean, I see females these days. Some are kind of cool, kind of friendly. Wouldn't mind dating them. But a long time ago, they had a lot more appeal. Because of the unnatural direction of society, because of exactly how they're changing people, how it affects their brain functioning, it affects their epigenetic direction. They've shifted them from a natural direction permanently to an unnatural direction. And who wants to live with that in their soul? Who wants to be the offspring of that? What have you? The people have made that call and what have you. Point number 15. The brain zaps blew up in their face, right? Years and years of them using technology to zap my brain. And I tell you this knowing that there's people who are going to play stupid and say, well, that's maybe brain seizures, or that's this condition, or maybe it's schizophrenic, maybe it's anxiety, or what. It's all bullshit. There's 22 witnesses to the PSYOP against me. There's a PSYOP against me, And part of it includes fuming. There's witnesses to that. Poisoning. There's witnesses to that. And we all know the government has technologies. And so when we see the brain zaps accompany the fumes and the poisons, it's safe to say the overwhelming logical assumption is that they're zapping the brain. Now, even if they did some kind of autopsy and say, look, that's consistent with brain seizures or something, who's to say they weren't mimicking brain seizures? Who's to say you can trust that autopsy? Who's to say they're not just lying? And who's to say that even if that was the case, that the fumes and the poisons didn't cause those things to occur? So no matter how you slice it, what they've done has caused the brain zapping. And the feeling of the brain being zapped and the resulting cognitive impairment that we see in the videos. You see in the videos. When I listen to my videos, I hear me stumble in my words. That's happening. And it's happening as a result of the fumes and the poisons and the feeling of my brain being zapped, which the overwhelming evidence shows us it is caused by technology, the patents, what have you, and other people experiencing similar things. Point number 16. Psychiatry has proven to be a fraud. Part of why they do this is because I'm someone who speaks out against psychiatry, but it's not one of the main issues, but it's up there somewhere. So let's look at the scriptures here in their own book, right? Protestants, for example, are known to swear up and down that the Bible is infallible, many of them at least. Lamentations 2:14. The visions of your prophets were false and worthless. The word used is worthless. They did not expose your sin to ward off your captivity. The prophecies they gave you were false and misleading, leading away from the direction you should go, thus failing in life, thus losing. It says in the Bible, I think it's John 8, that everyone who sins is a slave to sin. A slave to sin. So they're slaves to sin. Quite often white supremacists, Jewish supremacists, LGBT supremacists, they would cite slavery or something and say, hey, you used to be slaves, right? Forgetting that, Jews were slaves to some degree. Whites in Europe were enslaved, and Romans and Greeks, and on and on and on. And they'll say some stupid stuff like that. Why they're slaves to sin, and I'm free in the Spirit of God. Matthew 11:19. The Son of Man came eating and drinking, and they say, here is a glutton and a drunkard, a friend of tax collectors and sinners. But wisdom is proved right by her deeds. Wisdom is proved right by her deeds. I'm the top martial artist ever possible. The fruit of my father, who's a brain surgeon, the most respectable brain surgeon ever lived, ever well lived. And my mother, who's a doctor who married him at a racist time in this country's history, in Michigan, where they had the Klan and so on and so forth, one of the places. And she married him during a time of race riots and so on. She met him, and eventually they got married. Wisdom is proved right by her deeds, including generational deeds. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Even if they launched the biggest smear campaign in history right now, it wouldn't help them. The die is cast. The argument is within the argument of you're sabotaging me and my family. Matthew 5:10, Paul's letters, all who wish to live a godly life in Christ Jesus will be persecuted, and I am Christ Jesus. Marshall is marital scrambled and Christ is the bridegroom. When you look at the two arguments here, I argue that the miracles are figurative. That's the moral and logical way to interpret it. They argue for a fairy interpretation, like the fairy depictions of their angels that look like little fairy angels. Yay, yay. It's stupid. I argue that Marshall is marital scrambled and Set is testifying against himself like he does in Egyptian mythology, exposing the lies. It's in his own wordplay. They offer no counter-argument and no explanation to why the word Marshall is marital scrambled, the word proof, pro of. The Lord is a warrior, the Lord is his name, profound. The difference between being deep and profound and righteous versus being shallow and fairy-like, they offer no counter-argument, thus conceding that I've won and that my interpretation is superior and it leads to a superior life when one commits to it. Wisdom is proved right by her deeds, wise deeds, not fairy lies. Pharisee, fairy, Luciferian, fairy lies that they live and they teach. Proverbs 5:22, the evil deeds of the wicked ensnare them, the cords of their sin hold them fast. For lack of discipline they will die, led astray by their own great folly. The Bible says folly is an unruly woman in Proverbs, and it also says folly is in the heart of a child, and the rod of discipline will drive it away. But for lack of discipline, they're like a childish, unruly woman, and they will spiritually die led astray by their own great folly. Proverbs 29:3. A man who loves wisdom brings joy to his father, but a companion of prostitutes squanders his wealth. What do you call females that refuse to rally to the most righteous person ever lived? And they date rich Freddy Krueger types, Dick Dastardly, Prince Humperdinck, Lex Luthor, Dr. Doom types, the Riddler, the Joker, Mr. Freeze types, the Penguin. What do you call that? They date rich Hitlers, rich Stalins, rich occultists, rich Aleister Crowley types. They're prostituting themselves to childish philosophies and blood money. And the rich who are choosing them and that blood money are like vampires who are the companions of prostitutes who squander their life, their wife riches, and their blood money on evil whores. Again, Proverbs 29:3, a man who loves wisdom brings joy to his father, but a companion of prostitutes squanders his wealth. Proverbs 12:8. We'll leave it at this here. A person is praised according to their prudence, right? Their diligence, scrambling to do what's right. And one with a warped mind is despised. Not only did they fail, they're despised because they have the warped mind of one who fails in the particular way that includes persecuting the most righteous person that ever lived for no reason. What on earth were they trying to prevent? Often they would say that they don't want people to look up to me. While you're doing what? You know? You're campaigning? What exactly? While your military is embarrassed with the rapes that occur in the news? What exactly? Well, the rape prison came out in Dublin, California, not far from here. It's the greater Bay Area. Or was it Northern California, rather? Dublin? It's up there somewhere. Turned out they were raping hundreds of inmates, like over 100 female inmates got a settlement recently, a total of $116 million that they split amongst themselves. Horrible stories came out of that. Horrible stories. Horrible things must have occurred there. These guys admitted it, for those of you who are doubting that, because you might cite the Duke rape case, you might cite whatever, but these guys, these CEOs admitted it. We look at celebrities. What are they doing these days? I don't even know who the most popular celebrity is right now because they're not doing anything. No offense. What's Taylor Swift? She seems like a nice chick to some degree, but she's just a celebrity. She's just an entertainer. What is she doing? What is she doing that me shining would interfere with? Nothing. Who? Who the guys who play for the Warriors? Was it something Curry or something? Tim Curry or something like this? I don't even follow sports anymore because it's so unimpressive. Who's doing something? Singers? They sound like they're like witches mocking singers of old or something. What exactly were they trying to prevent? For King Charles's coronation? Oh man. That'd be very sad if that was the reason. Okay, so when we consider breeding, timing and the timeline, when we consider the word feel, right? Don't go by based on how you feel. Like, I don't want him to. That's stupid. The word feel is the word flee scrambled for a reason. You're fleeing from your responsibility. Responsibility. The Tonya Harding effect, right? You're sabotaging, you think it's a good idea. The Mac Minister effect, right? Says they did this and that, but they did this, but they are this or that. But they persecuted Christ. You might see opinions again. The opinions of who? Jocks? They're called dumb jocks, dumb hoes. Emos, weebles. Fucking the word weebles doesn't suggest somebody with an opinion of the highest worth. No offense to anybody. Goths, they're cutting themselves for a reason. They don't value their own opinions. No offense. I hope these people get the help that they need, and I'm the cure. Cure Obi black belt. Cure O. Obi meaning King Hard Hut, Essence Center Temple Core, and Obi in Japanese meaning belt, and Obi in Igbo OB is Ebo spelled backwards, and OB means King Hut Essence Center Temple Core and Ebo. Okay, so the black point of reference is who today that's a celebrity, that's really famous on TV, who's comparable to Martin Luther King? So if you didn't want me to show you up because of your racial supremacy agenda, you didn't even show up Martin Luther King, even after you changed his image and made him look Jewish-like or something, made him look weird to some degree, and made it so he looked weird. You still didn't one up him. Who of you has character? Who of you is an actual civil rights leader, an actual hero? Who? Who among your celebrities? Who among your rich people? Palo Alto, the Hamptons, Malibu, Bel Air, Beverly Hills. Where are they? Los Gatos, Saratoga. Who are they? Where are they? Who's like Michael Jordan, or Malcolm X, or Nelson Mandela, or Muhammad Ali, or Mike Tyson in his prime? Where are they? Who are they? Like Gaddafi would say, Man Antum, who are you? The word skills is the word kills scrambled. The word spar is like the word par and like the word spare. If you are a righteous person, not a low-down, dirty, no-good person, do you want to spare them when you show that you're skilled? Or do you want to kill them like a monster? Truly, I tell you, I have won. Victory is mine. I could die right now the most painful and horrible death. And I've lived the greatest life ever. My life was sliced into 100 pieces and only one remained. That one would be greater than all the oppressors that ever lived put together if they lived forever. I have won. The number one, A Alpha, I have won in my heart, in my soul, in my mind, in my spirit. I've won. Not you. Not the Jews, not the whites, not the LGBT community, not Token Mind, not anyone else. What can they say? I challenge you to a debate on the fact that I've won. If you don't accept the challenge, you've conceded. I have won. You have no logical bargaining position. You can only reduce your own failure and disgrace. I hope you do that. You know? For my parents' sake, I wouldn't mind sticking around a little longer. You know? To calm their nerves. But hey, it's not the end of the world. They're old. They're grown. They could die any day now. Say I died today, they might die the next day or the same day. I'm not worried about that. But it'd be a shame if your stories and what happens to your offspring is a result of your inability to admit that you do not have a bargaining position. I've been more than gracious with the 5 points I made in the other video about my non-negotiable things. I got to put God first. I have to have the dignity. Not going to settle. Gang stalking in terms of targeting me must end. And it'd be nice if you stopped targeting anybody, and everybody who you're targeting. And I should get $100,000 a year at least, which is not a lot of money. You ripped me off for so much money, lost wages, so much money. You ripped my family off for so much. That's nothing. What is $100,000 a year? Like, if I went to a chick and, the average middle-class chick and say, I make $100,000 a year, we're set. She's like, look, that's peanuts. Especially in San Jose. That's gonna barely pay the food and the rent. It's not gonna pay for cars and all these clothes and all this other stuff, right? It's peanuts. It's like $65,000 after taxes. A little over $5,000 a month. Rent might be $2,000-$3,000. Food maybe $2,000 a month for two people, give or take. Unless you eat like a very poor person. I've been very reasonable. I'm not materialistic. I have a right to express myself, to freedom of speech, to freedom of assembly. I have a right to put God first. The most important religion is the one that has to do with universal pinpoint and moral precision. Something that everybody from every faith can respect. No one from any religion wants to go on stage and compare their religion to mine, or to compare the output of their religion to mine. Nobody from any religion. My religion is superior. It's true. The way, the truth, and the life. They can't prove theirs is true. I can prove mine is true. Between the logical assumption, the most logical assumption argument, and universal pinpoint and moral precision focus, moral intensity, what have you, I can prove that my religion is superior to all religions and all philosophies. They couldn't beat me sparring. They couldn't beat me at a debate. We have no viable counter-arguments for anything I said in this video. I have one. Horus Heros. Set. Settling. Settling for what? Going to hell. Being disgraced. They say embrace the disgrace for their false conception of race. That's what they say. Rhyme and reason.